Yes, that time of day. It's time to talk some fantasy baseball on Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Good Thursday afternoon, everybody. This is Arnie, and it's time to talk about some fantasy goings and comings and doings and all of those exciting things that we do every Thursday afternoon. And what a week it's been. We got a lot of ground to cover. Let's start it up right now. Let's talk about, pitcher pitching tonight, first of all. And I don't know about you, but I am loving me some Mike Soroka. And, I sang to you a few weeks ago to the tune of My Sharona. But Mike Soroka is pitching tonight in Arizona, and he brings in his 3-1 overall record, 27 strikeouts on the season, a minuscule 1.14 ERA, a 1.01 whip. He's facing those Diamondbacks in the desert. And I can't wait to see how Soroka does tonight against the Diamondbacks. It ought to be a great night for him. Speaking of someone who's off to a hot May, for him, I think, is Starling Marte for Pittsburgh. He was injured April 30th, came back from his injury. Since his injury, he's hitting .265 with 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and 3 stolen bases in 7 starts. The Pirates are now batting him leadoff. So, another kudos go out to Starling Marte. Some players that you may want to look at not starting today. Wilson Contreras for the Cubs. He's on the bench. Contreras has been white hot. White hot. Like a coal turns white and it's so hot. Well, that's white hot Contreras in May. He's 8 for 20 so far this month. But he is not starting on Thursday for the Cubs. Neither is David Dahl. I was talking with Phil Chappie about David Dahl, and we both like the talent. But the thing I am really discouraged about with David Dahl is he sits on the bench so much. So he's on the bench again Thursday, and you're just wondering, when's another injury going to happen to David Dahl, right? But he's sitting out Thursday. So is his teammate Daniel Murphy. And, so far I'd have to say, Daniel Murphy's first month in Colorado has been a major disappointment. It's either been an injury or lack of production or both. Well, Murphy's out again tonight. Jonathan Lucroy has had just an incredible start to his season for the Angels. And if you have ownership of Lucroy in a fantasy league, you got to be feeling pretty good about the way he's been playing. Yeah, he's been just killing it, and he just continues to hit. But he's sitting tonight. So if Lucroy's in your lineup, you want to make sure you've got him out. Another player who's sitting out tonight, and I talked about him on the last show, Joey Votto. Joey Votto last night in Oakland. That game went, 13 innings? And there was some bright spots in that game. We'll talk about that in a minute, especially if you're a Trinan owner for Oakland. 2 perfect innings in relief with 2 strikeouts. So any news or reports on an injury to Blake Trinan appear to be premature. He pitched 2 shutout innings, no walks, 2 strikeouts last night. But in that game, Joey Votto for the Reds, 0 for 5. Joey Votto's average on the season now is down to .210. .210. Joey Votto. Who'd have thunk it? Age catches up with everybody, doesn't it? Even great hitting Canadians like Joey Votto. Well, he's sitting out tonight for the Reds, so if you've got him on your team, make sure he's sitting on your bench. Little surprise on the injury front today. Did anybody know anything about Buster Posey being concussed? I didn't know anything about it. Well, he is. And Buster Posey is going to the IL with a concussion. Unknown whether he will be able to return after the 7-day period or not. In the meantime, the Giants call up Aramis Garcia as their backup catcher from AAA Sacramento. Fantasy, not relevant. But someone who maybe is Mr. Vogt, the primary catcher. Remember Vogt a few years ago for Oakland? He was an all-star. Well, now for the next week or so, he's going to be the primary catcher in San Francisco. He may be worth a flyer if you need a catcher. He's going to get regular at-bats, at least over the next week. So there you go. Also for the Giants, Drew Pomerantz to the IL. Now, he pitched earlier this week in Cincinnati at Great American Ballpark. It was not a great day for Mr. Pomerantz pitching. The Reds lit him up. And so he has a lat issue. Don't know how long he'll be out. Drew Pomerantz to the IL today. So he will be on the pine for just a little bit. Coming back tomorrow, wow, I love it. Fernando Tatis back from his injury. He was taking full swings in practice, batting cage, running, sprinting. So it all appears that Fernando Tatis is back from his troubles. He'll be starting tomorrow night in the lineup for the Padres. And what a great place to come back from an injury. In Denver, Colorado, facing off against the Rockies in the mile-high city with the altitude perfect for hitting. So Tatis Jr. will be back tomorrow night. Kristen Stewart, the young phenom for Detroit, a day earlier than expected. In fact, they were thinking that Kristen Stewart would be back off the IL this weekend for the games against Minnesota. He's actually off now, so if you're a Kristen Stewart owner and activate him, he was just beginning to heat up a little bit before he got hurt. Great power when he makes contact, great launch angle. Kristen Stewart off the IL today for the Tigers. He's in the lineup. Just keep your mind on that. Look him up if you got him on your team. He may be available in some leagues. Kid's got a lot of power. I want to talk about some of the things that happened last night, just briefly, and some of the pitchers and players who are making somewhat of a comeback. Did any of you guys watch the Orioles and the Red Sox last night? If you did, then you watched quite the pitching performance by one Chris Sale. If you didn't, you missed a treat. Chris Sale went 8 innings last night against the Orioles. Yeah, I know it's the Orioles. But he went 8 innings, 108 total pitches. He tapped out at 97 miles per hour with his fastball. Total command of all of his pitches. He didn't walk a single batter. He struck out 14 in the game. 24 swinging strikes. And earlier in the year, I was reading reports and watching games, and Sale would pitch a game and have only 1, 2, or 3 swinging strikes for the whole game. Last night, 24 swinging strikes. Wow. Now, I know it was the Orioles, but you can see signs of Chris Sale coming around. I traded for him. I talked about him bad. I dogged on him. But then I traded for him a few weeks ago. I traded Manny Machado for Chris Sale. And now why would I do that? Well, if you've looked at Manny Machado's numbers, you know that they are not what I'd say Machado-ish. Machado's hitting .237 now with only 8 home runs, 19 RBIs, but .237. And just, to me, I don't get a good feel for him out in San Diego. I just don't. He's got the big contract. And how many times do you see star players the year before the free agency year, they have a career year, and after they sign the big contract, not so much. Well, that was my hunch, okay? And so I traded Machado for Sale when I thought I could get a deal on Sale, and I think I did. I think Sale's going to be Sale. I think if you were patient with Sale, and when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. When I was dogging him the first week of the year, I was wrong. And the one thing that I think you have to look at with Chris Sale, Boston extended him during the offseason. And remember when Roger Clemens was a free agent years ago, they thought he was too old. They thought he had it, and they refused to extend Roger Clemens. Well, they've extended Chris Sale. So what that means to me in the short term and long term is there is no injury problem. And maybe the talk of the extra innings last year with the playoffs and the World Series, they were just trying to work him, build him back up. Maybe that's exactly what it was. I know last night he was Chris Sale. Yeah, he was Chris Sale. And he looked like a man on the mound, a man with a mission. And so I look for Chris Sale to continue the progress he made last night in his next start. I really do. I'll tell you what I want to do next. I want to take a look at the standings real quick. And instead of going through every team, I'm just going to go through like the top tier teams and maybe who's in second place. Give us sort of a catch-up, if you will, on the first place, second place teams in each division. But before I do that, I do want to talk about Chris Sale one more time. His 7th inning last night, okay? The thing that was remarkable to me about Chris Sale, for 6 innings, he was flirting with a no-hitter. There was nothing odd. He was in total control. And then came the 7th inning where he threw a 9-pitch, 3-strikeout inning. And that's what I call and what reporters call an immaculate inning for Chris Sale. Let's hear it for Sale. I mean, it was 9 pitches, 9 strikes, 3 up, 3 down. And that's what I'm talking about. I think that's the indication that this was vintage Sale. And that Sale is now back pitching like the Chris Sale, the ace that the Red Sox so desperately need to head off and be the leader of that pitching staff. So with that, now let's talk about the standings. In the American League, we'll stay with the American League East. You got Tampa Bay at 23-13. The second best record in the American League. That means someone has moved into first place, not Tampa Bay. At 23-13, they've won 6 of their last 10. In second place, I tell you what, if the Yankees aren't resourceful, I've never seen a team that is. I mean, as many injuries as they have, and Urshela gets hurt last night, fouling a ball off his knee. It was an inside pitch, a fastball. He was trying to yank it, I guess, to pull the ball into left field. In an effort to do so, the ball, after leaving his bat, immediately hit just below his knee. And he limped around for a few minutes. And it hurt. You could look at the swing and where the ball hit just below the knee. That had to really hurt. He came out of the game. Don't think it's anything long term, but yet another person on the bench for the Yankees. At any rate, they're 2 games out, and the Red Sox have finally reached the 500 mark on this Thursday. They are 19-19. Over the last 10, they have gone 8-2. They've won 2 in a row, and they are only now 5 games behind Tampa. Wow. So take a look at that. That's going to be fun all summer long, don't you know? In the Central, the best record in the American League belongs to the Twinkies. The Twins are at 23-12. They've won 7 of their last 10. They're off today, but they've got 4 games coming up this weekend, a doubleheader on Saturday at home against the Tigers. And I think they could really open up some ground this weekend on Detroit. I really do. They've got their best pitchers going. They're hitting the ball. I mean, you know, Polanco, their shortstop, 5 hits yesterday. C.J. Cron, their first baseman, 4 hits yesterday. 9 hits between those 2 guys. I haven't even talked about Nelly Cruz. I haven't even talked about Rosario. I haven't even talked about the fact that Sano's coming back in a few weeks. The Twins are for real. I think they're going to run away with that division. I really do. I think they can win that division by 10 games or more this year. And now they have a 4-game lead over Cleveland. Cleveland's 19-16, 4 games back. In Detroit, 6 games out, 16-17. So this weekend, Detroit, you know, I've just said I think the Twins are going to make some space. But if Detroit could win those games, they could really close the gap. And then they could be a player and a factor continuing into the month of May. In the American League West, how about Houston? I mean, are they just not killing it? We're going to talk about some of their players in a few minutes. But what an offense. There is even more offense on the horizon. And yesterday's pitching performance was incredible. They're 6-4 of their last 10. They're 22-15, and they have a 3-game lead over the sinking Seattle Mariners. Now, Kikuchi threw a gem last night in New York against the Yankees. Substance or not, he threw a gem. And the Mariners are just hanging on just above 500 at 20-19, 3 games behind the Astros. The Texas Rangers, 17-17, only 3.5 games out in the American League West. Let's turn to the National League for a moment, folks. And the division that I thought and think could be the tightest in all of baseball, it's not looking like it will stay that way. There is a tight division in the National League, but it's not in the East. The Phillies are 21-15. They have won 2 in a row and 7 of their last 10, and they lead the Braves, who were just annihilated by the Dodgers in Los Angeles. Swept. They lost 3 in a row. Scoring differential was out of sight. They lost again last night to the Dodgers. The Braves are 18-19, so the Phillies are the only team in the National League East right now with a winning record. The Braves are 3.5 games behind the Phillies. The Mets are 17-20, 4.5 games behind the Phillies. And what about the lowly Nationals? The Nationals are closer in the standings to the Marlins than they are to the Phillies. So you know what that means. They stink! The Nationals are 14-22, 7 games out. They have only won 2 of their last 10, and they have lost 4 in a row. And I know they're injured. Soto's out. I could go on. But how about nothing like the Yankees? The Yankees have 13 guys out. 13! Yet, they've continued to play outstanding baseball. They've been resourceful. The Yankees are only 2 games out of first place. They're 6 games over 500. And the Cavalry's coming. Well, the Nats, the Cavalry's coming, but they're 8 games under 500 right now. So some shakeup is due. And Carter Kieboom was not the answer. Not the answer at all. Keep your eyes on the Nats. They need bullpen help. And, this foolish talk, we're going to wait till the draft. I mean, if they want to win this year, they need to go sign a relief pitcher right now who's on the market, who won a World Series last year with the Boston Red Sox. Names not being mentioned, but you know what I'm talking about. Apparently, Washington doesn't, so I'll keep it a secret since they don't know. Maybe they'll listen to my show and give me a message on our chat room, right? Oh, my gosh. But there is a close division. I'll tell you what, let's go to the division that's not so close. The Dodgers, winners of 7 of their last 10 and 3 in a row of the Braves, are 25-14, the best record in the National League, playing .641 baseball. They have a 3-game lead over the Diamondbacks, who have got to be one of the surprise teams in baseball. And if they're not, the San Diego Padres are, who are 3.5 games out of first place. No other team is closer than 7.5 games in that division. In fact, the Rockies and Giants are tied for last at 16-20, and they're playing tonight in Denver. But there is a close division. And what was it? The thing you love about baseball is week to week. It's day to day. Sometimes it's hour to hour, right? It was a week ago the Cardinals were winners of 9 of their last 10, and they were 2 games up or 3 games up. And today they sit in 3rd place. I love it. Who's in first place, you may say? Well, it's the team who is winners of 9 of their last 10. They've won 2 in a row. They're 21-13, and they have a half-game lead in the division. The Little Bears, the Chicago Cubs, Chappie's team. Yeah, the Cubs are doing it all right now. They're pitching. They're hitting. They're doing it all. And if the Cubs will continue this, and they can, right? They can. Now, they've got some concerns, I'm sure, because of who's pitching tonight for them. And so tonight it's Yu Darvish. He's pitching against the Marlins at home. Darvish is 2-3 with a 5.79 ERA. You'd have to obviously say he has been the disappointment of this staff so far. If Darvish can turn it around, and there's no better team to start a turnaround against than the Marlins, look out, Cubby fans, you're in for a great summer. But right behind them, almost as hot, winners of 8 of 10 and winners of 6 in a row are the Milwaukee Brewers. Wow. The Brewers are hitting the ball. They're pitching. And Yelich, of course, is Superman. We know that. Moustakas. What about Moustakas? Does anybody talk about him? How about Lorenzo Cain? Now, not for fantasy purposes, but Lorenzo Cain defensively, does it get any better than that? Just wondering. Moustakas is hitting .272. He scored 19 runs. He's got 9 homers, 24 RBIs. The Brewers are for real. And they're not going away. What a division race that's going to be. So that's a look at, 10-minute look at the divisions. And I love the Central Division in the National League. I love the American League East, as always. And we're going to keep our eye on that. Let's see where we are next Tuesday when we get together and see what changes have been made, in just a matter of 4 days. It's now time for our trivia question of the day. Are you ready? Put on your thinking caps. And I want to talk about Vladdy Guerrero Jr. I heard Lenny say this morning, if you missed Lenny's show this morning, Go back, pull it up, and listen to it. It was hilarious. Lenny said, it's about time for the Blue Jays to call up Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Well, guess what, Lenny? And I know you know this. He was already called up. He's just not hitting anything, okay? I mean, that's the thing you love about baseball, too. You get these prospects, some are unknown, they become stars. You know, who if you'd have thought, just give me some feedback on this, okay? If you'd have told me before the season started by, I don't know, how about May 9th, 2019, that there would be a rookie third baseman or infielder in the American League, and he would be hitting .293 with 6 home runs, 13 RBIs, and 2 stolen bases. Okay? And then if I told you there was another player, rookie, who, if I'd have told you this again right before the season started, that he would be hitting, 162 with no home runs and 1 RBI, which one would you say would be Vladimir Guerrero Jr., okay? And which one would you say would be Michael Chavez? Just questioning. I mean, I would take the 162, no homers, 1 RBI, and say that's got to be Chavez, because the 293 and 6 homers and 13 RBIs, and that's got to be Vladdy Jr., right? Well, that's not right. That is not right. Yeah, I mean, bad answer if that's your answer, because it's just the opposite. Again, that's the thing about baseball. So, in honor of Vladdy Jr. and his poor start, here's a question for you. Who was the last Rookie of the Year, and give me the year, for the Toronto Blue Jays to have a Rookie of the Year? All right, the last Toronto Blue Jay to be Rookie of the Year, give me the name and give me the year. We'll come back to it in a few minutes, and if you have it, great. If you don't, then, hey, I'll just have to give you the answer. I got some players I want to talk about with you. You know how I do you, so here we go. Let's talk about Jared Eichhoff for the Phillies. Jared Eichhoff, he is 2-1. And last night, he had a win over the Cardinals. He went 6 scoreless innings and only surrendered 3 hits. No Cardinals base runner reached second base until Yadier Molina ground rule double in the 8th inning. That's domination, folks. Domination. Check this out, further domination. Jared Eichhoff for the Phillies, only 1 run on 8 hits in his last 3 starts, and that covers 20 innings. Wow. Wow. I mean, incredible. Now, he draws 2 starts coming up that are not easy. On the 14th, which is next Tuesday, he's facing off at home against the Brewers. Ugh. And those left-handed bats, aforementioned Yelich, the aforementioned Moustakas, Lorenzo Cain, and the list goes on. And then on the 19th, he's at home against Colorado. Now, let's see how Eichhoff does in those 2 starts. Again, I'm not saying go get him. If you got him, great. And if you have him on your fantasy team, I know you're mighty happy, aren't you? You're cheering, and you're just cheering because it's a great thing to have Jared Eichhoff right now. I know that. But the next 2 starts are critical. If he performs at this level against the Brewers and the Colorado Rockies, Jared Eichhoff, well, he's an ace. Another pitcher, Brandon Woodruff. He's really turned it around. You know, Woodruff, he's 5-1. He started the year just getting shellacked. You know, he was really good out of the bullpen last year for the Brewers. Getting shellacked. Send him down for about a week to minor leagues, clear his head, get whatever. Well, whatever worked. Last night against the Nationals, 6 innings, no walks, 9 strikeouts, 1 run, only surrendered 4 hits. He's in 42 1/3 innings, 54 strikeouts. I love me some Brandon Woodruff. I've watched him pitch. Great fastball, great movement on his off-speed pitches. You know, there's a difference in command and control, right? Control is being able to throw a strike. Command is putting the strike in the zone where you want it. And last night in this game against the Nationals, Woodruff had command. Loving me some Brandon Woodruff. Great game last night. And looking forward, let's see how he continues to perform. Another pitcher, Tuesday night against Houston. At Houston, Danny Duffy's on the mound for the Royals. And don't you know he went gulp a few times looking at that lineup. But Danny Duffy pitched great. He's had back-to-back quality starts. Sunday, he's at Anaheim to pitch against the Angels in a pitcher's ballpark. Against Houston in that incredible offense Tuesday night, 6 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 5 strikeouts. Again, back-to-back quality starts for Danny Duffy. A few years ago, he was a strikeout machine. And if Duffy's back to his old tricks, well, I want him on my fantasy team. I can tell you that. Another pitcher, how about Kyle Gibson for the Twins? I talked about earlier how the Twins are just a machine. I mean, they're creating some space in the division between them and the second-place team, the Cleveland Indians. And they're doing it with hitting, and they're doing it with pitching. We know about Berrios being the ace of the staff, if you want to call him that. I guess I call him the ace of the staff. Well, they've got some more pitchers, and we talked about on the last show, Martin Perez. Perez is off to a 5-0 start with a 2.83 ERA. He's going to pitch Saturday. Both of those first two, Berrios and Perez, are going to be pitching Saturday in the front end and back end of the doubleheader at home against the Tigers. Well, Kyle Gibson pitched last night. Wow. You ready? 6 innings pitched against the Blue Jays, 1 earned run, 2 hits, 1 walk, and 11 strikeouts. The only run and one of the 2 hits was a home run to Billy McKinney. He only threw 88 pitches in those 6 innings last night, and he had 19 swinging strikes. What a game for Kyle Gibson. And a fantasy pitcher to own going forward. I bet he's on a lot of waiver wires. His next 2 games, next Tuesday, he's at home against the Angels, and then on the 19th of May, he's at Seattle. 2 great matchups for Kyle Gibson. He throws a heavy sinker, a good fastball. He's a pitcher you got to go get if he's available. Now, if you're so pitching strong that you don't need him, then you don't go pick him up. But if you're in need of another starter, Kyle Gibson's your man because he's on a team that also is going to produce W's, wins. Wins are things we don't chase, but we're glad to have them when we can get them, right? And so he's going to pick up wins on that Minnesota Twins team. So if you're just joining us, I want to welcome you to Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports Network. This is Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. It's Thursday night. We go through players you want to look at for fantasy. There are some great shows on this network, and I'm going to go through the list in just a few minutes. And I think, if you guys are looking for fantasy baseball, looking for some knowledge that can be shared with you, you'll never find a better resource than Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports. The guys on this network, I'm in awe of them. I mean, I'm telling you, the bar has been set high. I'm just trying to catch up with the bar. These guys know their stuff. It's the best fantasy network. You got Aloha Fantasy Baseball. You got Phil Chappie. You've got Draw It for Upside. You've got Drop the Mic. Oh my gosh, Lenny Melnick every morning at 9 o'clock. You got Easy on a Sunday morning. Easy Roundtable at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, the Fantasy Gangsters. What a group of folks. I mean, JJ Sports Talk. There's Hump Day at midday. Listen to these shows. I'm sure I'm leaving some out. There's, Pharrell. Just listen to the shows. Lenny and Andrea do a great job with this network. And thank you for letting me be part of it. I love it. Let's move on to some other players. How about it? How about Brad Peacock last night? How about a little cheer for Brad Peacock? I'm telling you, what a game. Peacock has been struggling his last outing. He did not look good at all. Last night, 7 innings pitched, no earned runs, 1 walk, 12 strikeouts. Wednesday night against the Royals. 27 called strikes. His ball was moving like crazy. In total control. His next outing is the 13th against Detroit. He's 3-2. He's relief pitcher, starting pitcher qualified. A great guy to have. And again, as I talked about Kyle Gibson a moment ago, on a team that wins and scores a lot of runs, well, so do the Astros. I like a starting pitcher on teams like that. And so if Brad Peacock's available, you got to go take a look at him and look at getting him. Now, the next pitcher I want to talk about, I'm really on these pitchers, aren't I? Tell you, I'm going to talk about some hitters in just a moment, I promise. In fact, this is the last pitcher I'm going to talk about today. Yeah, last one today, Matt Boyd for Detroit. I love this kid. I love him. Over the last month, the first couple of weeks, he was good. He really was. But the last month, he's 3-1 with a 2.75 ERA. Over the last month, he struck out 47 and only walked 10. Last night, he pitched 6 innings pitched. He only allowed 3 base runners in 6 innings, 6 strikeouts. He's 4-2 on the season, and he has 7 consecutive quality starts. 7 consecutive. And I don't know if that leads the league or not, but it's got to be close. Matt Boyd, what a pitcher. Trivia question. The Blue Jays have had the previous Rookie of the Year. We talked about Vladdy. Vladdy's got a ways to go if he's going to get there with his 167, no home runs, 1 RBI. He may do it. The last Blue Jay to be Rookie of the Year, Eric Hinske. Yes, Eric Hinske. In 2002 was the Blue Jays' last Rookie of the Year. So there you go for our trivia question for today. So let's talk about some hitters, shall we? Is there a better hitter in baseball right now than Michael Brantley? Michael Brantley for the Houston Astros. And any team in the major leagues could have had him in the offseason, but it was the Astros who signed him to a free agent contract. In a league that I'm in, highly competitive league, I had drafted Lorenzo Cain. I had wanted to get Michael Brantley. Right before I could pick Cain, Brantley was drafted. About 2 weeks into the season, Cain was tearing it up. I made a trade offer, which was accepted, and I got Michael Brantley for Lorenzo Cain. Now, I'm not saying that's not a good trade for both teams, but for right now, give me some Brantley. 340 batting average, 9 home runs, 22 runs scored, 27 RBIs, 3 stolen bases. He's doing it all for the Astros. And what's funny, I was listening to a show I was watching a show on TV. I think it was one of the Astro games. No, it was the Astro game. And after the game was over, they were interviewing the manager for the Astros, A.J. Hinch. A.J. Hinch said, he went up to Michael Brantley and said, there's going to be some games probably where late in the game I'm going to take Jake Marcinek and put him in center field. I'm going to move Springer over to right and put Reddick in left, which means Brantley comes out of the game. That very next game, there was a ball hit in the left center field gap. Brantley running over at full speed, makes a great catch in the gap, comes back to the bench and says to A.J. Hinch, the manager, you may want to rethink taking me out of the game late in the game. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? Now, I don't know if A.J. Hinch said that just to fire Brantley up a little. Whatever the result, Brantley is a player. He, over his last 5 games, is 8 for 19 with 4 home runs and 9 RBIs. There is no hotter hitter in baseball right now than Michael Brantley. If you're in daily leagues, ride the horse till he has to go to the get the water. You just keep riding him. You keep playing him. Love me some Michael Brantley. Now, another player that I tell you what, I'll tell you when I may be wrong. Sometimes you talk about a player and you're dead right. Sometimes you talk about him, and I think Jerickson Profar listened to my last show. I really think he did. I think Jerickson Profar listened to Arnie's Fantasy World of Baseball, and he said, I'm going to show Arnie that I am a player. Jerickson Profar is hitting 192 on the season, but over his last 5 games, he's 100 points better than that. 292. He's 7 for his last 24 with 2 home runs and 5 RBIs. And I watched him play last night, and he looks like he is now paying attention to what's going on. He looks like he is engaged. Profar, multi-positional. Most leagues he is first base, second base, shortstop, third base qualified. What a player to have if he can hit. And he is, it appears now, starting to do just that. Jerickson Profar. Another Oakland A of interest, Matt Olson. I watched the game last night. Something that's happened when I was growing up as a young kid watching baseball on television, there was no such thing as a shift. And, in the last 10 years, that has become the novelty, right? A power-hitting lefty comes up. You've got only one infielder on the left side of the field, or vice versa. A right-handed power guy comes up. You only have one infielder on the right side of the field. You've seen it how many times? Every day, right? Well, last night, the Reds imposed the shift on Matt Olson, a power-hitting lefty. He bunts one time down third base for a base hit, and another time he goes the opposite way for a base hit. Now, Olson's had the hand surgery, and people are watching to see if he's going to hit with power. Still don't know. Jury's out on that one. But I do know this. Last night he had two opposite field hits, one of the infield variety, one of the outfield variety. Keep your eye on Matt Olson. He may have learned some things. And if he can start going the other way, you're going to take a 240 hitter, you're going to turn him into a 280 hitter. You really are. And Olson is the kind of guy, if he can hit for average to go along with the power that he has, then look out at the season that you may see from Matt Olson. And speaking of that, how about Joey Gallo? I talked about Brantley for a moment. Gallo, historically, a 200, if that, hitter, right? I mean, he'll hit 40 home runs, but hit 200. And Phil Chappie and I were talking earlier in the season about what if Gallo could hit 250? How many home runs could he hit? Well, how about this? Last night he homered at Pittsburgh. Okay, he has hits in 5 consecutive games, and he's hitting 274 with 27 runs scored, 12 home runs, 28 RBIs, and just for kicks, throw in 2 stolen bases. What a player. Fantasy king, right? He and Michael Brantley are my fantasy kings of the day. So just taking a look at Gallo. And another player I want to talk about is my top 10, and here's number 10. How about Marwin Gonzalez? Marwin's a 206 hitter on the season, right? And what you try to do is you try to buy players when they're down, hopefully with some feeling they will get better. You take your players who are overperforming, you want to sell them at the high and get your best price, right? Sure. Well, Marwin Gonzalez, who is first base, second base, shortstop, third base, and outfield. The only position he can't play in fantasy is catcher. 206 on the season, but over his last 5, 7 for 22 at a 318 clip. He's going a little bit unnoticed in Minnesota with all the Polanco 5 hits last night, Cron 4 hits, that lineup. But in that lineup, he's 7 for his last 22, 318. And this weekend, 4 games in 3 days against the Tigers. At home. Marwin Gonzalez is a gotta-have ad this weekend against the Tigers. So there's my top 10. Now go do with it as you please, okay? But let's just review those players one more time, their names for you. I won't go through the stats again. But we talked about Kyle Gibson, Brad Peacock, Matt Boyd, Michael Brantley, Jurickson Profar, Matt Olson, Marwin Gonzalez, Jared Eichhoff, Brandon Woodruff, and Danny Duffy, our top 10 of the day. Yes! What a group of players. And that'll transition us into another group. We're going to talk about some rookies to finish off the show today. Are you ready? Yeah, let's talk about some rookies. Let's start off with, and this is my picks to click. There's so many rookies that have already been called up, and we're not going to talk about those because you already know about those. We're going to talk about some guys that are yet to be called, who I think are going to be called sooner than later, and I've got it down to 4. Okay? And there's logic to my madness. There really is, and there's a reason why I think these 4 are players to keep your eye on. So let's start off with my number 1. You know who it's going to be, because if you've listened to me, you know what I think about Jordan Alvarez. I mean, come on, Astros. You got to call this kid up. He is just killing it, all right? 2 for 4 with a solo home run, a double, and a walk Monday at Round Rock's win over San Antonio. He's hit 13 home runs, leads the AAA. He's got a 1.400 OPS, 18 walks, 22 strikeouts, and 121 plate appearances. I mean, come on. Now, I know Houston's got to get rid of a player to call him up. But you got here's a suggestion. What about getting rid of Tyler White? Okay? Let's just get rid of Tyler White. Let's call Alvarez up. He can play some first base. He can DH. He can play some outfield. But the most important thing, this kid can rake. Rake. And I don't understand why he's not already up. Well, I guess it's because Houston's winning. But this guy, he's ready to play. And here's some news for the day. Here's another rookie. If Alvarez is 1, then Austin Riley is 1A. Okay? And this is news fresh off today, looking at the Gwinnett team and their team notes. Here's just some things. Last night, Riley went 3 for 4, a walk, 2 home runs, and 3 RBI for Gwinnett, the AAA affiliate of the Braves. He's 22. He's slashing .469 with a 1.204 OPS over the last 13 games, including 10 home runs, 3 separate 2-homer performances in the last 8 games. Now, what's the roadblock? Well, Josh Donaldson's at third in Atlanta. They can't have 2 third basemen. So what are you going to do? The kid can obviously hit. So what are the Braves doing? Last night, Riley got his first start in left field. He's going to become a left fielder. What does that mean in a week? In a week, maybe, Acuna moves to center field for Atlanta. Inciarte goes to the bench as the 4th outfielder. Austin Riley goes to left field for the Braves. And the Braves are players for the rest of the season. Wow. Inciarte has a 640 OPS, and this would be a easy transition, moving Acuna to center, opening up that corner outfield spot for Austin Riley, and watch how he will flourish. I tell you what, if you remember, what was it, maybe 2 years ago when the Phillies called up Rhys Hoskins. Okay, and you remember how Hoskins just went off for a month. Okay, that's Austin Riley. That's Austin Riley. So those are my top 2 prospects who I think are up sooner than later. I'm going to predict by next Thursday this time, you may have both of those guys in the major leagues. Let's see if I'm right. If not, really close to it. And those are players, I don't care what kind of league you're in, go stash these guys. Season's a long season. If they go 5 games, 6 games, and don't play, so what? Just stash them. Stash them now. See if I'm not right. You're going to love this advice because it's going to pay off. It's just going to pay off. Multitude of payoff here for you. But I'm not done. No, I'm not done. I got another rookie to talk about. I've never talked about, I don't think, on this show before. And it's former Yankee great and farmhand Jorge Mateo for the Oakland A's. Yeah. So what's Mateo on the list for? Well, it's because he's hitting .333 with 8 doubles, 8 triples, 2 home runs, 24 RBIs, and 8 stolen bases with AAA Las Vegas. The 23-year-old has been killing the AAA league. All right? And with his speed, with his power, with his batting average, don't you just know the A's would love to infuse this into their lineup and kickstart that offense? Love me some Jorge Mateo. If you don't have him, you should. And he's a kid to go. Again, I think an imminent call-up. From everything I'm reading out of Oakland and newspapers there, off the internet, you need to go look and take a look at adding him to your roster and adding him now. Finally, another rookie pitcher. Here we go. And I've talked about him before, but I'm going to talk about him again because I think he is ready for the call. And it's Zach Gallen for the Miami Marlins. Last night, Wednesday night, he allowed 1 run on 2 hits and 3 walks over 7 innings while striking out 7 for the Miami AAA affiliate New Orleans. Baby Cakes. Don't you love that? Don't you love that team name, the Baby Cakes? Oh my God, they scare you, don't they, just thinking about it. He's won 5 straight starts. He's had 6 quality starts out of 7 on the year. He missed the 7th quality start by just 1 out, meaning he went 5 2/3 innings. He has a 1.14 ERA, a .57 whip, a 55-8 strike-to-walk ratio, and has thrown 47 innings. He has nothing left to prove in the minors, and the Miami Marlins, they have been consistent in giving players auditions. Zach Gallen is next. And again, I think these guys, all 4 of these guys I'm talking about, are within a week to 10 days from getting the call. You got to give Alvarez and Riley the at-bats in Atlanta and Houston, respectively. Oakland needs some infusion, and Zach Gallen has been just throwing goose eggs at opponents. So those are players that I think you need to be looking at rookie-wise. There are more. And, of course, you got you guys already in the major leagues like Chavez, like Senzel, but we already know about them. I'm trying to talk about players today that maybe aren't talked about so much. Let's take a look at the lineups for today, if we will, please. In that Cleveland-Chicago game this afternoon, Carrasco, man, he started off hot, didn't he? Carrasco, if he can keep that knee straight, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. He was really dealing. Luplow hit a home run for Cleveland against the White Sox. Probably not fantasy relevant, but, keep your eye on Carrasco in that knee. How about Fletcher for the Angels? He's in that leadoff spot, and he got another leadoff single day. The Angels took a quick lead on Detroit this afternoon. And in that game, Ohtani also got an RBI single. So, wow, if Ohtani could start hitting, that would really be a plus for the Angels. The Giants and Rockies played this afternoon. Reds and Athletics. Lenny will go over all these games tomorrow morning. I really want to look at the night schedule. The game's yet to come. You've got Musgrove in St. Louis against Waka and the Cardinals at Busch Stadium. That game starts at 7:45 tonight. The Rangers are at Minute Maid Park. Mike Minor, and there's been a lot of rumors I've been reading about today and doing my homework for this show about Minor going back to the Braves. Can you believe that? The Braves have a wealth of young pitchers. And if Minor could pitch like he has in Atlanta to add some, senior leadership, if you will, to that rotation, wow. He's going up today in Houston at Minute Maid Park against Wade Miley in the Astros. Miley's 2-2 with a 3.20 ERA. And then the nightcap tonight, in a limited schedule today, I talked about this earlier, the Braves and their ace, Mike Soroka, 3-1 with his 1.14 ERA, is in Phoenix at Chase Field to take on the Diamondbacks and Luke Weaver. These two pitchers faced off in Atlanta about 3 weeks ago against each other at an afternoon tilt. And there was a lot of great pitching, a lot of swinging and missing, and not a lot of runs scored. And why not tonight in Arizona, a repeat of the same, right? The line there on that game is 8.5. I'm going under with that one, guys. I think there's not going to be many runs scored at all. I think Weaver and Soroka will both pitch well. I think Soroka will pitch a little better and get that win tonight for the Braves on the road. And they're a slight favorite as well. The final game tonight, the Washington Nationals struggling, send Patrick Corbin, the lefty, to the mound. He's 2-1 with a 3.71 ERA. And he will face off at Dodger Stadium against Rich Hill and the Dodgers. Rich Hill, no wins, no losses. He does have a 3.60 ERA. His first start was very quality against the Padres, coming off the injured list. And it's just a matter of, you see Rich Hill down there, and if you're a Rich Hill owner, don't you just hold your breath and please don't get a blister. Please don't hurt yourself. He's like glass out there. I mean, he's the pitching equivalent of like a David Dahl, right? He's good just if he can stay healthy. The Dodgers are a favorite tonight. The over and under on that game is 7. I think that's a little low. I like a little higher than that, so I'm going to go higher than the 7 over and under in L.A. tonight between the Nationals and the Dodgers. So that's sort of a look at things as we look at today. Here's a little preview for you. I'm going to be back with you on Saturday at 11, okay? So put that, I think it should be on the schedule. I talked to Andrea earlier this afternoon, let her know that I'm going to have a show for you then. Let's look at the schedule for the rest of the day, if we can. I think I'm it, actually, how about that, as far as the schedule goes. So maybe this is all you have to go on tonight. If it is, then take it. Look at those rookies we talked about. Go do a little research of your own. You know, a show like this is simply out there, guys, to get the discussion going and the thoughts provoked, right? I love it when you disagree with me. I really do. I'm going to go back and look at all the chat room responses to my players today when I finish. But I love when you respond to me. I love when you disagree with me. What I do is then I take the chat room discussion and I apply it to my next show. There you go. So that's what we're going to do Saturday. So if there's anything, any player, any digging deep you want Arnie to do here, just let me know and we'll do it. How about that? What a day. I hope everyone has a great Thursday night. I've enjoyed being with you. I love doing these shows. Again, Lenny will be back on tomorrow morning at 9. And until then, go play some baseball.